Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's first webinar from Festival of Enterprise, brought to you in association with Dell Technologies. Today we are talking Dell PC as a service, and I'm joined by Tara Woodhurst. Good morning to you, Tara.
Good morning, Alex. It's been one heck of a morning so far.
It's all good, though. It's all good. It's fine.
Absolutely.
We've got everybody on here. Whereabouts are you in the UK at the moment, by the way?
I'm based in Reading, a rather grey and damp Reading at the moment.
Yeah, same down here on the coast in Dorset, so we haven't got it any better in Poole. So I can see we've got people. Janine says it's awful in Suffolk. Ola Russo says the same up in Sheffield. John says the same in Bristol. So, I mean, I saw the forecast and it's literally looking good for the next 10 days. I don't see a cloud in the sky. So, fingers crossed it's accurate. And we do get our summer. So, just to frame this for everybody this morning, thank you for waiting with us. Apologies, we're a little bit late. You're probably on your second cup of coffee or tea by now. But we've got really interesting webinar for you. You are going to learn more about PC as a service versus other procurement models, and why eliminating CapEx heavy hardware refreshes will be a win for small businesses, why there is a surge of interest in this procurement model, and a deeper dive into Dell's PC as a service model. Tara, as I say, is Business Development Manager, PC as a Service with Dell Technologies, in this series of webinars that we've had, and also a mini podcast series for those of you who like to listen, consume your content via audio. You can go to Festival of Enterprise and listen to that on whichever way you consume your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify. You can listen to that mini series of 3 podcasts as well. But today, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tara to talk more about PC as a service and why you should consider it. Any questions, as always, a little bit of housekeeping, the chat box that a lot of you have already been using, please continue to do that. That's the easiest way to be able to watch webinar this morning. Any other questions that you got, there is an ask a question button as well, if you want to use that. And those of you watching on social, we're streaming live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. So if you'd like to join us here and get a bit more interactive and a bit more engaged, then simply go to festivalofenterprise.co.uk, register and jump on board here. But equally, feel free to browse this webinar on social as well. So look, without further ado, Tara, you have the screen. Over to you.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for staying with us this morning so far. So welcome to the session. And as Alex said, I'm going to talk a bit today about PC as a service. So technologies are rapidly evolving. We've seen artificial intelligence and machine learning rapidly evolving. Maybe it's time for business practices to rapidly evolve as well. We all love the phrase, that's the way we've always done it. But maybe it's time to rephrase that, to evolve it to, this is the way we're going to try it. So let's explore this just a little bit further. So it's starting to seem that we've got life as a service these days. And subscription models in computing have been around for many years, but it's in the consumer space that they've exploded in all sorts of areas and are now coming back into IT. In the last few months, I've actually signed up to so many subscription models. I'm thinking of adding another subscription model just to aggregate and manage the others. I won't even go into the Gin Club membership, but suffice to say, it's made lockdown a whole lot more manageable for my own sanity and for my partner. But on a more serious note, clients who are comfortable using subscriptions in other areas of their lives or businesses are more likely to approach an as-a-service model in IT for more than just software licenses. Rethinking the way systems are procured can help us transform an organization's client IT. Taking another look at traditional approaches is an important step in helping manage devices just better. Now, I've got a nice summary here on screen from IDC. Clearly, companies have got procurement choices when investing in PCs. You can, as usual, buy systems, spending a lump sum up front to purchase the PC. Alternatively, you could lease. Now, this is a predictable model that lowers the total cost of ownership, allows technology refresh, and maintains capital with a fixed rate for the term of the agreement. At the end of the term, you've got the option to renew, return, or buy the equipment. Then there's PC as a service. This is a flexible arrangement where procurement, deployment, device, and lifecycle management are all handled by one vendor. In my case, of course, I'm going to talk about Dell. Now, that's either directly or via a channel partner, if you prefer. Leasing and as-a-service models have attracted some concerns over the years. In fact, a colleague of mine in the Netherlands loves to tell me that they've summed it up perfectly with an official advertisement guideline that says lending money will cost you money. I'm hoping to prove a little later this isn't exactly the case with a live example. Now, I was going to talk about market trends and include quotes such as that from IDC once again, who've indicated that 19% of all purchases would be via the as-a-service model by 2022. What I've observed is that procurement models have been shifting in the direction of as-a-service models at a slightly lower pace, as organizations wanted proof it had worked for others before dipping a toe into the water. Now, the current situation has dramatically accelerated this movement, and all bets are off. There is a potential silver lining in all of this. What it does mean is that businesses that were stuck in the rut of annual or quarterly budgets can now use this time to take a step back and review their CapEx or their OpEx models. The current situation actually gives you air cover to make the sorts of transformational decisions you may have been delaying. Now, the biggest potential challenge at the moment is obviously maintaining cash flow liquidity. Your upfront capital may be challenged, and as a result, you may be locked into dated systems. You probably don't want to dip into your cash reserves, or you may want to focus on servers and storage instead of endpoint systems. With PC as a service, customers don't start paying for systems until they've been delivered, thereby minimizing the cash flow impact immediately. You spread the costs over time and manage refresh cycles with predictable contract durations. Most likely, you just don't want to have to deal with client IT day to day, particularly at the moment. You don't want to have to handle high-touch manual deployments. Perhaps you were providing support for employees in 1 or 2 locations before. Now, they're more likely to be working from home, which adds significant complexity. You may also be concerned about the additional potential security issues this raises. You may also want flexibility with the equipment you have. For example, if at a later date your team does come back into the office, you may need to deal with and dispose of additional equipment. And then finally, adaptability is critical. Prior to the current situation, environmental concerns were on the agenda, and they're likely to be so again. But the phrase new normal is dominating headlines as we consider the return to work environment and what that may look like. The straight answer is we just don't know. So considering multiple scenarios is critical. So PC as a service is more than a simple move from CapEx to OpEx. By combining financing with value-added services, you've got a complete solution from system receipt to retirement. Simply put, this is the way it works. First, you choose the hardware and software that you need. Then you decide on a 3 or 4 year agreement. Technical specialists and artificial intelligence tools support you for the length of that agreement. If you order via a channel partner and you want to retain that relationship, we can enable the channel partner to use the tools on your behalf. At the end of the contract, the systems are removed and recycled. In Dell, we've got two flavors of PC as a service. A for business model that starts at 1 unit and goes up to 299 units in a calendar year. And then the enterprise model, which is 300 units or more with no upper limit. What I'll do now is take a look at each of the component parts in a little more detail. This isn't going to be a hardware discussion today, but I wanted to touch on 2 points that have a bearing. Those are manageability and security. The first is Dell Optimizer, something that we've recently launched as part of our new range of client hardware. Dell Optimizer is a built-in artificially intelligence-based optimization software. It's designed to automatically improve application performance, battery runtime as well, and audio settings. So you've got a seamless experience with fewer disruptions. If we look at each of the component parts in brief, Express Response uses AI to learn the user's behavior with selected applications. It identifies optimization opportunities, and it automatically applies appropriate settings to improve the performance. Intelligent audio allows users to hear and be heard better on conference calls by adjusting things like the loudness, the noise level, and echo elimination. Express Charge learns about battery usage on the system. It then uses AI and machine learning models to apply the correct charge policy and identifies opportunities to extend the battery runtime. Finally, Express Sign-In detects the user's presence. It enables faster sign-in, and it locks the system screen when the user walks away, which ultimately, of course, means enhanced security and power saving. Now, thinking about the subject of security, this is a challenging area, and it's well beyond the scope of this session. But of course, it's critical to any solution offered today. Low-level attacks often take advantage of weak system configurations and firmware vulnerabilities. So what we do is provide built-in security solutions that help protect the endpoint ecosystem. So we look at security to extend below the operating system and then complement that with additional solutions to give you comprehensive protection. You can see some of the examples on screen here, and I've provided a handy link so that you can get more information at a later time. While many of the attacks may not be seen as sensational as, say, ransomware, they can still be as devastating. In fact, when the BIOS is compromised, the attacker often remains hidden while the PC has credentialed access to the network and the data contained on it. So to combat this specifically, I'll just touch on Dell Safe BIOS. This protects the BIOS from tampering with a Dell exclusive BIOS tamper alert. What makes it unique is that rather than storing the BIOS information on the hardware itself, which could be corrupted, of course, we provide off-host BIOS verification using a secure cloud environment. This automatically detects BIOS changes and stops corrupt code in its tracks before it can damage the operating system or spread further into a business. Safe BIOS provides additional visibility to BIOS changes, and should a BIOS become compromised, the image of the BIOS is captured automatically for analysis and remediation after going through the BIOS recovery process. So this is just one example. As I've said, this is an area that definitely requires research and assistance from experts. Establishing a set of mature and robust security controls isn't enough by itself. Proactive management of cybersecurity is absolutely critical. Now, I mentioned the hardware and software components of PC as a service. I'll now look into the next part, which is deployment. Now, we've offered this as optional for small business because we're working on the basis that most small business owners are probably most focused on the data migration component. But just so you know, we offer a standard layered suite of factory-based deployment packages called the ProDeploy suite. If you'd like more information on that separately, your account manager, or I'm happy to answer questions on that. What I would recommend for smaller businesses is combining modern provisioning using either VMware's Workspace ONE or Microsoft's Autopilot with a software package called Transfer My PC. With Workspace ONE provisioning, we pre-configure devices with applications and settings in the factory. Then we ship the new Dell system directly to the end user, no matter where that user is. On first boot, the user is authenticated into the Workspace ONE tenant and is prompted with a simplified out-of-box setup process. The end user connects to the internet, and the setup connects to the company network. With Autopilot, during manufacture of the systems, we can offer a generic image free of unsanctioned software or bloatware. We'll also upload the device information that Microsoft needs for enrollment on your behalf. You've then got control over the Windows version, and the process reduces the IT tasks dramatically. So ultimately, you're getting the applications over the air or preloaded. Then during that first boot, you can use the Transfer My PC wizard. This will migrate the user profile, unlimited data, and potentially the applications as well. This combination will allow the end users to self-deploy. So that's the deployment part of the process under control. Now let's go into the main part of the system lifecycle, the longest possible part, which is the support and maintenance phase. What you can see on the screen is a comparison chart showing the two options available within PC as a service. And what I'll do is just throw some numbers out there for a minute. Now, there is a reason for this, I promise. Dell maintains 6 global command centers that regularly monitor field service events throughout the world. This is actually really cool because they look at things like weather patterns, roadworks, road accidents, these kind of things that maybe will disrupt parts getting to an end user. We actually employ over 24,000 support engineers in 165 countries and counting. Now, those numbers probably don't relate to what you're doing today, but what I'd like to try and prove is that you can get support that's local to you, and we can scale down as well as up. We've got 2 free of charge tools that underpin our support services, and those are Tech Direct and Support Assist. Tech Direct is a portal that can request technical support, enable self-dispatch of replacement parts, and acts as a hub for receiving support assist alerts. It's possible to explore the Tech Direct portal with no purchase commitment, and by trying various scenarios, you can then use the information you've trialed if you then decide to place an order. The goal of Support Assist is to provide insight into performance issues and implement solutions before the end users experience problems. Now, I'll talk about this in a little more detail in a moment. But ProSupport is best if you need 24/7 direct access to in-region ProSupport engineers, a single point of contact for software issues as well as hardware issues. ProSupport with Support Assist recognizes issues when they develop. A Dell is alerted and the customer automatically opens the ticket and begins the resolution process. ProSupport Plus is the highest level of support, with Support Assist predicting issues before they become problems or fixing them quickly if they do arise. So now let's take a bit of a look at Support Assist in more detail. It uses artificial intelligence again to get ahead of issues. So a typical scenario could be that an end user has ProSupport Plus on their system, and that's underpinned with Support Assist. Telemetry data is processed by Support Assist's AI engine. It applies machine learning to the data, identifying patterns that indicate a potential failure. The person managing the Tech Direct portal will automatically receive an alert warning about the hard drive failure. They can add a note to the alert detailing the end user's contact information. The alert is then forwarded to Dell to become a support request. The troubleshooting information that Dell needs to begin working the issue is attached to that request. Dell then contacts the end user directly and replaces the hard drive. As you can see, there's a number of key performance metrics that can be viewed, including things like processor utilization, the amount of free storage, data about system crashes and application crashes. To ensure we've taken small businesses into consideration, it's actually possible to download Support Assist on a single PC for companies that don't have an IT manager. I'm actually also often asked about personal information at this point. Support Assist only accesses system information needed to undertake tasks like identifying hard drive failures. Now, we've got a lot of detailed information, white papers, and assurance files to provide assurance on this point. So we've looked at the sort of main part of the life cycle phase, the support and maintenance. We then need to consider the end of the term. All customers will consider the cost of system procurement. Many will consider the support and maintenance of the systems. What I find is that only a small proportion think about what will happen to those systems when they reach the end of their useful life. So with PC as a service, Dell Asset Recovery Services includes that asset recovery at the end of the 3 or 4 year contract. For 1 to 19 systems, we offer a return service. You've also got the ability to undertake self-service data wipe. If you want to return 20 or more systems from a single location, we'll offer a collection service and the option of on-site data wipe with full reporting and certification. Returned systems are then refurbished and resold or recycled in adherence to the WEEE regulatory guidelines. And of course, Dell does not permit electronic waste to be exported to developing countries. And finally, on this subject, something that's very close to my heart, and you'll see this on my LinkedIn profile and other places as well, a note on building a sustainable and ethical supply chain. We know you want to work with companies that share your values, and we want to work with suppliers that ensure they conform to the same high standards we try and set for ourselves. So this applies to human rights, health and safety, ethical sourcing of materials, and ensuring a diverse and resilient supply chain. So we work to a strict reuse hierarchy of remanufacture, refurbish, repair, reuse, and finally, recycle. In fact, I was listening to a presentation yesterday from our environmental sustainability team and our progress goals. And we call this program Progress Made Real. And it's really quite astonishing what we're doing all the way through from our hardware creation through to packaging, through to the disposal components. And maybe we can talk about that in another session. It's really quite fascinating. And of course, PC as a service is underpinned with a financial wrapper provided by Dell Financial Services. That's Dell's in-house bank. We offer with that a tool called mydfs.com, and you can review your account details at any time using this portal. And that includes managing assets under contract, reviewing invoices and payment status, as well as managing end-of-lease options. You could even load asset tags onto the tool that aren't under contract with PC as a service and use the tool as an asset tracking capability. And in addition to this, what you can see on screen is just some of the data as a sort of proof that we kind of know what we're talking about when it comes to the financing part of PC as a service. So what I've done so far is really talk in theoretical terms about what the offer is, starting with the hardware and software, moving through the deployment phase into the support phase, looking at the asset retirement phase, and then the financing that underpins it. But now let's look at a real example. What does this mean in practice? So I've chosen here a typical configuration for someone who needs to work flexibly. And you can see it's got the notebook, the operating system, obviously, a monitor, a docking station. communication devices, and security software, and a briefcase as well to carry the notebook around. You can see then what I've done is added in the appropriate PC as a service components, very basic light touch deployment, support, asset recovery over a 3-year term. You can see that the price works out at £28.65 per system per month. If this was sold as cash, the total price would be 1,100 odd units, pounds and change. But the total with PC as a service works out at less than £1,031, or 90% of the cash price. Another way of looking at this is that this works out at less than £1 per day, with none of the management responsibilities. So we can offer this better than cash price by bundling in the component parts together. So in summary, what I've tried to demonstrate today is that Dell's PC as a service offer is much more than a support package with a lease. It offers a complete solution from system receipt to retirement. It removes a lot of the churn associated with client management. It's also incredibly flexible with a number of mix and match possibilities. Now is an ideal time to reconsider the way you procure IT, and within that, I reviewed the options available so that you can take advantage of a global provider with extensive in-house IP and put it at your disposal. Because we can help you harness our scale. And if you'd like to discuss PC as a service or any other IT topic further, please don't hesitate to get in contact with Dell. If you've got an account manager, great, please reach out to them. Or indeed, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have as well. So really, that's it from me today. And I guess I'm going to go back to you, Alex, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Got there. Brilliant. Well done.
We did.
Excellent. That's pretty, a few people mentioned that those stats are pretty insane when you said in 2018, and I guess that's the most up-to-date stats you got, that 94% were actually put back into the market through refurbishment, remanufacture, and reuse. That's unbelievable. How's that? And I'm assuming that's like ramped up massively over the last couple of years, has it? Like compared to what it was, I don't know, a decade ago, it was probably very, very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've done is we've paid close attention to the component parts of our hardware. We've used things like taking the film over windscreens on cars that are being taken for disposal, and we're utilizing that as part of the hardware material for the surface of the notebook. We're using ocean-bound plastics and have done so for many, many years now, and combine that into the construction of the hardware as well. We're using things like mushroom compost, spent mushroom compost, to create the packaging for the systems. So, we're looking at all sorts of different ways to make the component parts easier to disassemble and then reuse, and then obviously make the components themselves recyclable where needed. But more than anything, we'd rather reuse those systems, refurbish them, get them back to the market in a responsible way.
I guess it's only over time that you'll find out what the life cycle is for each component moving forward, and how much more becomes recycled and how much can still be put through the whole chain.
Exactly, yeah.
And interested to know what kind of trends have you seen? Have things changed in the last 100 days with regards to the way people their PCs, with regards to PC as a service? Has that dramatically increased? Kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? People are looking for flexibility and looking at leverage, other kind of companies and technologies to try and preserve cash, as you mentioned in your own presentation as well. Yeah. And what kind of trends have you seen in the last 10 days? Is it too soon to reflect back on that already?
Yes, I mean, the current situation was a real shock because people weren't expecting it and their budgets literally went out of the window. The most critical, important thing for most companies and organizations in general was to get hold of a laptop as fast as it was possible, or a desktop, and get their users working at home and functioning. So there was a lot of pressure on the supply chain to get those systems out. And then I think once that initial rush died down, people then started thinking a bit more about how they could look at the medium to long term, and something that maybe they had been putting off. But I actually saw a dramatic increase in PC as a service and the leasing area as a whole, because people had either used up their budget for the year or hadn't got the money together, and therefore they needed a quick way to get hold of those systems at the most cost-effective way possible. So I think, the big changes in summary were A, getting hold of the hardware, and then B, getting hold of it as cost effectively as they could. And I think now people are starting to take that step back and say, okay, this is going to look like a more permanent solution, potentially. The shock of working from home has worn off, and many people are getting used to it. So now it's a case of consolidating that position and making people more comfortable in the long term.
It's a bit like hearing at the start that people, not talking about Dell particularly, just general, and things now people are going, I can't get hold of anything inflatable, people, things like that, or a tennis table, and this equipment, but, hearing at the start, a lot of kind of chatting, people get hold of laptops and things like that. Did you literally find that they stock levels would really like drop into the floor?
Really? Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in the industry experienced supply chains, but I'm just very glad to say that Dell's supply chain really showed up its worth. We did a fantastic job, and there were some amazing stories of working with various larger organizations, negotiating with them to divert units to where they were most needed. For example, the Nightingale Hospital in London was something that we stood up in a very short time frame, having worked with large corporate customers and negotiating with them to take those units away. So it says a lot about our corporate customers, who very graciously said, look, hold off our deliveries, get the units to where they're needed, and then being able to stand up the Nightingale Hospital in short notice.
I had the same thing happen to me. I took off there, my computer started to drink a glass of water, and I was obviously I host live webinars every day, so I got a Dell PC shipped to me pretty quickly, guys. That's all that I've enterprise to see me through while my other one being prepared in the meantime. Do you, again, the crystal ball, isn't it? But I've gotten used to working from home, and I actually take a lot of positives on the last couple of days, and do you think, a lot of companies, just thinking about co-working space more aren't even, shared office spaces aren't open yet, but they're planning on opening this month. It might not be until September, middle of September even, when people are actually looking to get back to offices and then looking at their flexible working options. I've seen like a couple of companies go, Twitter was the first one to say it. Everybody can work from home now, but making that decision clearly puts strain on other sectors and on supply chains, such as yourselves, a company like Twitter, and people are only going to follow that lead really, and have to get software, hardware to their employees.
Absolutely. I had a little trouble hearing you then, Alex. But yeah, I think I absolutely agree with everything you just said. Sorry, a bit challenging to hear. Can you repeat if there was a question?
Yeah. So do you see, future forecasting with regards to demand is only going to increase here as companies move back into their offices, staff come from outside of town, and then that could be September, that could be Midwest September, maybe Q4 even.
Got you. Yes, thanks. Sorry, you're doing a fabulous impression of a Dalek at the moment for me, but I think I got there. Yeah, we've been reviewing Analyst House data quite extensively over the last few weeks, and I think the one thing has become true is that there is going to be an increase of people working from home on a permanent basis. What that number looks like, I've seen various numbers ranging from the current situation, 20% moving to say 40% on a permanent basis. That seems to be the number that most people are settling on. But as I mentioned, all bets are off. We just don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what companies will decide as their more permanent policy. But definitely something is going to change. That is for sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to move close to my microphone to make it easy to hear. Also, let's say, can you please share details of account managers? And then if you're able to do that, or whether you just want more information, you share.
So, thanks for the question. It will depend if you've got an account with Dell or not. If you haven't, that's fine. I've got your details down here. In fact, made a note there as the question came in, so I can get in contact afterwards, and we can sort something out. If you'd like on the private line to just give me your email address, I'll get in contact with you after this.
Brilliant, thank you. And June says she's loving the environmental initiatives. Well done, Dell.
Great. Thanks, June. And if you want more information on that, we've got some web pages that I can give Alex to put out after this as well. So yeah, I'm sure you'd be interested. Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you got any other information, we can send an email out to everybody as well. Straight after this as well, so that's good. And just a couple of questions come through with regards to payment options. Then if you just want to reiterate one of those slides there at the moment, maybe you can just reiterate different options that you have available for people at the moment.
Yes, so we do have standard leasing with Dell as well. And in fact, our Dell Financial Services team have got some fantastic promotions on at the moment, whether that's using special rates or deferrals of payment, for example. So that's if you would like just some hardware, but you'd like it on a leased basis. Then obviously with PC as a service, it's a little more rigid, but it does mean that you get that cradle to grave support. So we're looking at 3 or 4 year engagements. And as I say, it's a single price per unit per month with no hidden costs. So once you are given a quote with that amount, you saw the example at £26 a month, it'll be that for the 36-month or 48-month period.
Okay, and then a couple of questions in, just to probably reiterate again. Ideal, probably don't have an ideal customer in that you can pretty much help everybody. I'm assuming, rather than maybe I don't know, under 10 employees like startups to scale ups. Is that correct?
Sorry, could you repeat again, Alex?
Yeah, just some questions with regards to the size of businesses that you can help. And I'm assuming everybody from startup scale up to blue chip company.
Absolutely, and thanks for that. So as I mentioned, we've got 2 types of PC as a service, with PC as a service for business ranging from 1 to 299 units. So that's absolutely ideal for a very small organization, maybe a single user, a self-owned company. And then, I say, 300 units and up with PC as a service for enterprise with no upper limit. So Janine there on the chat has said, is there a minimum? As I say, it's 1 unit, Janine. So absolutely, what I've been trying to really get across with this, and I hope I've succeeded, is we can help very, very small companies indeed, individuals who are company owned by themselves.
I can see more questions flying in now as well.
Absolutely, this is great. Keep them coming, people.
Yeah, Michael starts off with, can you summarize as to why now is the time for PC as a service? Why would more home working be a driver for the service? Good question.
Sure, and great question, Michael. So the primary reason I think is because we can deploy to any location and we can support and self-dispatch parts to any location, and we can then do remote support. It really means that an end user or a company has got immense flexibility to work from wherever they want. And as I mentioned earlier, adaptability in the current climate is key because we don't know what's going to happen. One week, people may be coming back into the office. The next week, they may need to work from home again. Or a company may decide, you know what, everybody out, go and work in your front bedrooms. So we can see this sort of solution being more suitable because you've got one source to go to rather than trying to coordinate multiple different sources if you're trying to get new systems out and support it. And then you don't have to worry about any component of the life cycle. It's all being done for you wherever you are. So it's that increased flexibility where working from home, isn't really a factor anymore, and we can help support you. I hope that answered the question, Michael.
Yeah, and he's got a follow-up question. In addition, would you include refurbished machines in the service?
Initially, upfront, no, we don't. We always offer new systems. We offer in the UK our refurbished system from a refurbished site at great prices, by the way, and they're grade A quality systems. We only put the grade A quality out there. But for the PC as a service offer, new systems always.
Awesome. And just coming up to the hour now. So any last questions, please post them up, everybody. Otherwise, any last words from yourself, Tara? Would you like to draw attention to any contact details or any last points? Oh, there you go. June's come in with the last question before I'll hand over to you, Tara. You say it includes antivirus. What if something goes wrong? Who is responsible?
Mm-hmm. So the example I gave, June, included an antivirus solution. That doesn't come as standard. We can incorporate the antivirus solution that you want into the bundle that you decide. So we've got a number of different possibilities there in the first instance. When you say something goes wrong, that's a very broad statement. And the responsibility will depend on what went wrong. So without being a little bit more specific, I don't think that's something I can answer in the question's current format. Have you got maybe a more specific example around that? And maybe I can help answer. Or if not, maybe that's something that I can address offline with you, June. Happy to help as I can, but I just want to make sure that I get my understanding right. Okay, so what if the system got hacked? It's a great question. And again, I think that's a very broad one. It would depend on how well you secured the system as an individual, as the owner or the user of the system in the first instance. Let me take that one away. I'm going to come back with a comprehensive answer to you because I don't want to put myself on the line here because there are lots of variables to take into consideration.
Yeah, hopefully you haven't had too bad an experience in the past by the sound of it, June. Yeah, so just to wrap up, really, any last comments, Tara? Would you like to just point people in a direction for a landing page, anything like that at all?
Perfect. Thank you. That's beautifully led there, Alex. What I would say is, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like more information on PC as a service, go to delltechnologies.co.uk/PC as a service, written in full. And you can find more information there. If you've got a Dell account manager already, please feel free to reach out to them. Otherwise, you can find me, Tara_Woodhurst at Dell.com. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And it's been a real pleasure to finally get to talk to you today on this subject. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Really, really professional presentation. Really good. Thank you very much indeed for that. Really interesting likewise on the green credentials as well. I think that's something that especially Generation Z, if not all of us, are looking at when they make their buying decisions. And as I say, I can forward on anything. So if you either send it through to myself or Tansy, and we can email everybody who's registered on here today with more information about Dell and how you can find out more about PC as a service. So signing off. Thank you very much indeed, Tara. Thank you, Sarah, as well, for joining us, and everybody else, Olasola, Michael, Ben, Janine, etc. June. Thank you all very much. So enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week, and let's hope the sun comes out.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye now.